One of the many things you can do in Destiny's endgame is optimize your stats for builds you may have for your characters. You've probably seen countless videos on YouTube detailing the different ways to optimize your stats around the build you desire the most. However, what happens if you are struggling to reach your end goal? Whether that be you can't get good armor rolls, you can't get the right stat combinations, or maybe something in between. Well, in today's video, I'm here to provide you with the ultimate guide for getting the perfect armor stats. This video will be covering a lot of different topics for armors, so if there's a section you want to focus on, then feel free to check the timestamps in the description below to skip to that part of the video you value most. With that being said, let's get to it. Let's quickly explain what each stat does. Going from top to bottom, mobility increases your movement speed and maximum jump height, alongside providing a shorter cooldown for hunter class abilities. Resilience increases how much damage you must take before you die and grants damage mitigation depending on what tier of resilience you have. It also provides a shorter cooldown for Titan class abilities. For recovery, it increases how fast you get your health back, and of course, it provides a shorter cooldown for Warlock Rifts, depending on your tier. For discipline, it increases how fast you get your grenade back. And for insight, it increases how fast you get your super back, and for strength, it increases how fast you get your melee back. The increase that different tiers gives can be viewed by hovering over the stat you want to check and looking at what the next tier lists. Now that we've covered what each stat does, let's get into what stats you should be investing into. Since we've discussed what each stat does, let's cover which stat you should be focusing. This all depends on which area of the game you are focusing your armor around. There isn't really a group of stats that can be applied to both PvE and PvP, so if you want armor for both PvE and PvP, I'd highly recommend that you put together multiple armor sets for different areas of the game. Another thing that is worth considering is that you should be focusing on whatever stat will help make your build even better. For example, if you're working on a grenade build in PvE, then discipline would be one of the stats that you would prioritize. One stat that is great in both areas of the game is resilience. As I said in the previous section, resilience gives you up to 40% damage resistance in PvE, and in PvP, it can allow you to survive additional damage. So resilience is a fantastic stat to prioritize. From there, it depends on what builds and which aspects of the game you want to play. For PvE, I typically like to focus resilience, recovery, and intellect, but discipline is also a great option. And for PvP, I tend to focus mobility a little more, especially on my hunter. I'm being relatively vague because it's truly up to your build, so focus whatever works for you. Another quick bit of knowledge I want to provide to you all is that you can pretty easily manipulate your armor stat rolls. All 6 stats are actually separated into 2 subgroups, with the top 3 stats being in one and the bottom 3 stats being in another. For legendary armor, the max stat roll is 68, which is an even 34 stat split for both subgroups, with those 34 stat points being split across the 3 stats in those subgroups. This means that it is most likely impossible to get certain triple 100s, like getting triple 100 mobility, resilience, and recovery, but knowing this trick can easily help you get triple 100s elsewhere. If you want a great tool to help you with your armor builds, then D2 Armor Picker is a great free resource that can help you combine armor pieces into great builds. I'll leave a link to it in the description below, just in case you are interested. Now that we've talked about which stats to focus, let's talk about the best ways to get high stat roll armor. Since Witch Queen's launch, there have been many sources of high stat roll armor, with each source getting more and more efficient. Starting with source number 1, we're going to check out dungeons. Dungeons are an easy way to get high stat roll armor thanks to how fast the encounters are. Every armor piece from dungeons typically drop at around 63 or higher, but you can occasionally get the 59 or lower stat roll, but it's pretty rare. Regarding which encounters to farm, you'll want to farm quick boss encounters. The best ones to farm are the final boss fight in Pit of Heresy, or Kaido and Duality. The Pit of Heresy boss always drops armor, or at least in my experience has always dropped armor, and that boss is an easy one to burn. Running linears with Divinity or Swords with a Will with Lucent Blade makes this boss fall over. It's also probably the fastest process to getting to the boss fight, which makes it even better. The only downside to this dungeon is that it's one of the weekly rotator dungeons, meaning you can only farm it once every 4 weeks. So if you choose this farm, you're gonna have to farm this dungeon until your hands fall off. Otherwise, Duality is another good option. Duality is one of 2 dungeons in the game that can drop Artifice Armor, which allows you to get an extra slot exclusive to seasonal mods. The other dungeon that can give Artifice Armor is Grasp of Avarice, but the reason I'm not recommending that dungeon is because it's a rotator dungeon, and both bosses have more health than raid bosses, meaning that unless your team is highly coordinated, one phasing these bosses won't happen. For farming Duality, farm Kaido, like I said, and just use linears with Wells and Divinity. The main downside for farming Duality is the fact that the dungeon hasn't been fully fixed, meaning the bells can still kill you, but Bungie added mitigations for this so it won't be as annoying if your team gets wiped by these. The second best high stat armor farm is literally decrypting umbral engrams at the helm into seasonal armor. I said this in my season 16 armor guide, but you probably couldn't hear me say it anyways because of how quiet my mic was in that video. But decrypting umbrals will typically grant you armor with a stat total of 63 or more. I don't think it can go any lower than that. If you've ever gotten a piece of armor lower than 63 from one of the helm vendors, drop a comment and let me know which vendor it was so everyone else can avoid that vendor. As a bonus tip, apply the armor stat buff mod on your ghost to help get a boost to one of the stats on your armor piece. This will help you secure even better stat rolls on your armor. That about does it for this video. This video took a while for me to make, so it would mean a lot if you could drop a like. Also, if you've been enjoying my content as of late, then subscribing to the channel would help me a ton as well. If there's something that I missed, please be sure to drop a comment down below so that way everybody else can also know. As a friendly reminder, I stream every weekday right here on YouTube, so if you have any questions regarding armor, Destiny, or if you just want to stream to hang out in, then be sure to stop by. Finally, follow me on my social media pages to keep up with my content. Those links can be found in the description below. With that being said, I'm SniperKH and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.